But when you actually feeling always like, oh, I got betrayed, or these people cheated on me, or I'm angry because in this situation didn't work out how I was expected. And if you always get annoyed, frustrated, if you always feel like anger and you feel like down or not good enough or something, or overthinking, and you feel stuck because you're always overthinking, that could be that because you had traumatic experiences which doesn't allow you to feel safe.
Welcome to Project Loving Myself, the podcast where we dive deep into the messy, beautiful journey of self-discovery, self-love, and healing. I'm your host, Sanaya Gurnamal, relationship reinvention coach and love alchemist. The most important relationship you will ever have is the one with yourself. Let's start this journey together on Project Loving Myself. Welcome back to Project Loving Myself, the space where we get real about loving yourself from the inside out, especially when life gets messy. Today's conversation is about something we all feel, but don't always have the words for it. Why does it sometimes feel like you're carrying way more than you can handle? Why do certain emotions feel so overwhelming, even when your present life doesn't fully explain them? Why do you keep falling into patterns you know you want to break, but somehow still repeat? Yep, we've all felt this way before. Feeling anxious without a clear reason, getting triggered in ways you don't understand, holding emotional weight that doesn't quite feel like it started with you. Some of what you carry comes from experiences that happened long before you had the words, the awareness, or the tools to process them. And some of it didn't even start with you. Joining me today is Edith B. Kiss, a holistic mentor, success habit coach, best-selling author, and international speaker who guides people from emotional overwhelm to inner peace by integrating neuroscience with ancient healing practices. Her work focuses on healing across 3 layers: the mind, the ancestral, and the karmic, helping you release patterns that aren't just personal, but also inherited. So today, we're unpacking the invisible weight you've been carrying, where it actually comes from, and what it looks like to finally start letting it go. Edith, I'm looking forward to our conversation today. Welcome.
Hi, Sanaya. Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
So, Edith, let's start here. When we talk about invisible weight, what does that actually mean? What are people really carrying that they might not even be aware of?
When people don't have flashbacks of certain memories when they were betrayed, or they don't have the awareness, when they just feel annoyed, they feel frustrated, they feel, betrayed in certain situations, or they feel overwhelmed, this can come from childhood traumatic experiences, which was actually buried in the unconscious mind. That's why they don't have the awareness. Many times when I'm working with clients, they get into memories. They are like, oh my God, I haven't even thought of it, that this actually connected with my current situation, because the unconscious mind knows only where it is, what it is, and then you don't have the awareness. You just feel like, okay, this kind of situation is actually pissing me off, or this kind of situation is actually makes me feel this and this way. And then, nobody is the same. Everybody's get triggered differently. That's why, it's your own thing to deal with. Is not the situation. It's you actually who's feeling a certain way about it.
So why do we bury it though, in the first place? Why don't we just, stay aware, Edith? I'm starting with like the very basic questions. But why does it get buried?
I think it's protection. It's to be able to move on a conscious level, So basically, you had that experience. You were, you felt angry. You felt all kinds of ways, but then you had to continue your life, right? So you couldn't stay in that anger and that overwhelmed feelings. You had to move on to the next topic or the next subject or whatever you had to deal with in life. So you kind of buried it in. And later, when you were like older, you couldn't even recall it anymore. That was like significant, especially if it's like, you can imagine it, a child is 3 or 4 years old when having the first traumatic experiences, going to the nursery or getting beaten up or something happens, and then as a child, you might have all of these negative emotions like the anger, the frustration, the fear, the scare, but then you don't know what to do with it. You don't know how to react. I mean, what to do with the whole situation. And then maybe you already tell to someone, but you don't get the support. So you realize that it's even useless to come up with any kinds of big situation like a solution, because there is no solution, right? You feel hopeless, you feel helpless, so you buried it. And then later when it comes up again, you don't even think that is actually the results of not being able to let it go or release it completely. And then that's why you got again hit with a similar situation.
And Edith, we do this all the time, right? I mean, even in day-to-day life, when we feel uncomfortable emotions, or we feel emotions that we don't have the time or maybe awareness to deal with, we just bury it and we don't think about it. And then it may or may not show up in our life at a later time. Sometimes we won't even make the connection, and we have to deal with the consequences. That's essentially what we're highlighting here. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. So we don't have the awareness first, and then we, even if we would have the awareness, we need to move on. This is a fast-paced life, and then everybody's saying like, okay, I need to do the next task and the next task. So it's like you don't even have the time to process things, and that's why it's great to take time off, going to a retreat or going on a vacation when you can actually start relaxing, processing. Those kind of situations. That's why you can have some time off sometimes, so you feel you having more awareness. That's why people go to speaking therapy, to having the awareness. They reach that point that eventually they start to have the awareness at the speaking therapy, like, oh, this is why I'm feeling this, or this is actually my reaction. This is how this emotion is connected with my current situation. But in speaking therapy, what they don't do, they don't go deeper. They don't go into the roots, or they can't find those because it's buried.
So, Edith, what you're saying is a lot of times women have these emotions: anxiety, fear, overwhelm, all kinds of negative emotions. So you're saying that many of these emotions really could be unprocessed experiences and emotions from a long time ago. And we don't understand that it's connected until we speak to somebody, or we process it, or we start having the awareness and become more connected, right, with ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So is there a way that you can recommend? Because obviously we can't keep going on retreats, or we can't keep going, to certain, we can't like just plan events to process. Is there a different way to not do this, to not bury these emotions and this weight so that it doesn't catch up with us later?
Because it's already happened. It's already buried. So whatever comes next is just the labor, there's just the next layer. So you need to deal with which was already buried. That's how you can stop the whole thing, like the whole cycle. I always say that you are riding an emotional roller coaster, right? Everybody's riding an emotional roller coaster. We got hit by certain situations, we got triggered, and then we go all over the place. But when you do the real work, when you do the deep healing about your buried emotional traumas, then basically this ride becomes smooth. Like you don't have this emotional roller coaster anymore. It's smoothing out, which means that when you are able to let go all of those things because you release them, you heal them, then is no reason that you're getting the similar situations into your life, because you learned it already. So it's not going to come up again. So you're going to realize that whatever you were dealing before and those challenges, they're not going to come anymore. You're going to be like more smooth on whatever situations is coming up. It's not going to be the same challenging. It's not going to trigger you the same way. You're going to become more resilient. It's not just because you're going to be different. Your life is going to be different too. Is differently flowing out. Like the people you meet, the opportunity, what comes around, they're gonna be different too. It's not just you working on yourself, changing yourself. When you're working on yourself, you're shifting your whole existence with your whole future.
I love this example of the emotional roller coaster, because so many women can relate to that. And I think for a lot of women, it feels normal. Like the emotional roller coaster is like normal life. And we almost forget that it doesn't have to be that way. It can actually be smooth and it won't be boring. So
Exactly.
I love that you're calling that out.
I want to pause here for a second because what Edith just described is something I see throw women off all the time. One moment you're fine, and the next you're spiraling. If you've been feeling emotionally overwhelmed lately, getting triggered easily, or like your feelings are running the show, I put together a free guide called Chaos to Calm: 5 Essential Tips to Get Off the Emotional Roller Coaster. It's a quick reset with simple tools to calm down fast, stay grounded, and get your power back before the spiral starts. You'll find the link in the episode description.
Now, Edith, you talk about 3 layers of healing: the mind, ancestral, and karma. Can you walk us through what each of these 3 layers means and how does it show up in our lives?
Yeah, so the mind, I more refer to unconscious mind. So basically, whatever is buried in the unconscious mind, and that's the things which you have it from this lifetime, like childhood trauma, whatever trauma, and then also the past lives experiences, traumatic experiences. This all showing up in the unconscious mind. So when you start working with the mind and you get access to the unconscious mind is start working with you. It's helping you to reveal those memories, exactly the ones which is triggering your current situation. And that's what you can actually release and heal and closing this misery basically for you. So that's when we work with the unconscious mind. There is a technique in the modality I use. There is a technique called source memory healing. And in the source memory healing, we actually go deep into delta brain waves with a meditation. And in that brain waves to get the access to the unconscious. And then the unconscious start bringing the memories and we release them one by one. And then one triggering like one current situation which is bothering you. It could be even a PTSD thing which is still coming up, So whatever you are consciously know that, okay, I am pissed off because of this situation. I feel betrayed or I feel whatever in my current life, then the unconscious mind knows which memories needs to be healed. So if it's 6 memories, then 6 memories. Sometimes it's 2. It's different for everybody and for every situation. It could take from 1 hour to 2 hours, that kind of release in source memory healing. So that's when we hear those situations. The second one is the ancestral healing. Is related to ancestral trauma. And we also affected by ancestral karma, but I will talk about that in the karma part. So basically, ancestral trauma is when your ancestors going through traumatic experiences and then your life is affected by it. It could be affected because as they change themselves, they as actually because of the traumatic experiences, they're going to have different beliefs, they're going to change their habits, their behavior, their reactions. So as your lineage is growing up with them and then inherit all of those things in the practice. So then they're going to show up the same way to you and then it's inherited downwards. So basically it could be like when people inherit cancer, right? So cancer can be inherited because they have a certain practice and belief which is showing up in their life, and then their children show how they react and how they behave, what they eat. Everything is combined in that, and that's why it's showing up in them as well. So what to do with this? There is a different way to deal with this. You can actually help to heal the ancestors. There is certain practices like the family constellation therapies, or there is certain meditations which makes it a bit shorter and more practicable and easier to access the family unconscious, step into the family unconscious field and heal it there, basically, with certain techniques. And when that happens, that's reflect into your life. It comes within a couple of weeks. Is not as fast as the source memory healing results because it's going through all those layers from the ancestors, but it show up in your life as a solution as well. And it's really amazing because you sometimes think that, okay, when my ancestors passing away, they are happy now because they left their body behind and probably they were sick or something, so they don't have the pain anymore. But that's the physical pain. They still, in their spirit, they still carry that anger, that hate, that betrayal, that frustration, whatever happened to them. So when you take the responsibility to start healing yourself and healing your ancestors, they gonna feel blessed and happy, and they also sending blessings for you. So ancestral healing is a really rewarding part.
Okay, so what you're saying is whatever's going on in our life, part of it could be things that are in our unconscious mind, and part of it could be energy from the ancestors that we are carrying.
Everything is energy, so we can call it energy, but basically it's in the field. It's in our soul family field, which we also are affected by, and then we inherited it in many ways. Yeah.
And how would it show up in our life? Like, so you mentioned cancer. What are some other examples to make?
Yeah, I mean, it's even how you react to things, So your disease is actually the results of your reactions. So when people get a disease, it's because they react on a certain ways to the triggers, like they got always angry or they got frustrated. So when those negative emotions lowering the vibration, your body, that's when you get the diseases. And let's say there is a very fiery Italian family, who's always fighting and then the rages and the revenge, and that's in their bloodline. Maybe that's causing a certain way of sickness, or also when you eat on a certain way, what you eat and how you eat is also reflects your emotions very often. And then the how you inherited certain food, what you eat in the family or when you eat that, right? It's also like causing certain diseases in even in a whole culture, right? Even in a whole country. So I remember that when my mentor was teaching us, I was living in Hungary, and he said that the Hungarian field, the Hungarian culture and the Hungarian people are defeated in the core because our country was defeated so many times. So in the ancestors is already created these traumatic experiences, and it was actually inherited in us. So how we react to things, how we live through experiences, and how we got triggered is coming from that defeat on a rooted part. So to heal the ancestors in our case is really important to get through that defeat emotions.
Okay. Now, how do we know? Edit. How do we know if something is ours or something is our ancestors or our culture or our karma? How do we tell the difference? And what do we do about it when we discover it's ours or it's theirs or it's like everyone's? Like, what do we do? How do we figure it out, and what do we do?
It's through patterns. So you see that certain pattern is maybe happening since you were like really little, or it's even happened to your family members like before. Like you talk to your family, you talk about your family tree, you talk about certain situations in the family, like with the grandma, with the, then you figure out like what happened in your whole lineage. Then it's easier to actually have that knowledge. If you can't do that, it's just literally looking through your life, like what patterns you experienced, what kind of challenges you had, or what is which you feel like connected more to the culture, connected more to the it's more about sitting down and having that conversation with yourself or with others who's also connected in this, like, where is it coming from, how it could shape my life, and is it really just me, or is like the whole culture or the whole family? You can see family members, like what challenges the whole family going through. Like if your brother and sister or cousins are going through similar challenges, then it's more ancestral. If it's like you see like you are a standout person who's going through these challenges and everybody is thriving around you, then it's most likely your thing, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah, so it's that's how you can kind of figure out. What I do with my clients, because we don't really have always time for this, these kind of things. What I do with my clients, we go through all kinds of healings in that 30 days incubator, because I want to make sure that I don't leave any stone unturned. So in that 30-day, we do ancestral healing, we do karmic healing, and we do the source memory healings to make sure that we actually tackle all of those possibilities, for her situation, for her current struggles.
Okay. Now, what I understand is a person could, look at their life and then look for the patterns, look for what could be going on, and then dig deeper on into what kind of, weight or baggage they're carrying, right? But
Yes.
how would a person, if they weren't going to do it that way, which is, okay, let me go see what's going on. What if we looked at it the other way? If a person was going through a challenge, a specific challenge in their life, where do they start to look for, the relief, or what would be the signs to tell them that they should probably explore the karmic, the ancestral, the mind? Like, what should they look for someone who doesn't even know about this kind of healing or doesn't even know what to look for?
Yeah, I would recommend. So it's not just about the challenges, like if it's hitting you, certain challenges, and it's how you feel about it, right? So it's again, we're going back to the emotional roller coaster, because there are some people like, yeah, get challenges, but they grow through it and they are resilient, and they are like, yeah, just let's do it. And then they still physically and mentally strong, they don't feel too much annoyed. They just like, okay, I'm just going through it. But when you actually feeling always like, oh, I got betrayed, or these people cheated on me, or I'm angry because in this situation didn't work out how I was expected, and if you always get annoyed, frustrated, if you always feel like anger, and you feel like down or not good enough or something, or overthinking, and you feel stuck because you're always overthinking, that could be that because you had traumatic experiences which doesn't allow you to feel safe, or doesn't allow you to feel like good enough. It doesn't allow you to feel like you can do this and overcome it, and then you just falling back always to those negative struggles, which is holding you back also to reach your goals. Because if you are riding the emotional roller coaster, it's taking you off track, basically. And it also can make you sick very often, like it's the sicknesses, disease is also a sign that you should really start taking care of releasing the traumatic experiences, because that's like kind of the end of it, right? So first it comes out as a trigger, as an emotional roller coaster, and then it becomes diseases if it's not treated well. So what to do with it is like, yeah, if you feel this emotional roller coaster, I highly recommend to actually do the deeper healings, the source memory healing. That's what would be really important, because sometimes it's just like, I remember myself when I started to do this, it was in 2018. And for me, because I was learning it on like specific courses, like in a 3 days course, and then there was like a couple of months off, and then another 3 days course or another retreat, or it was like a bit disconnected how I was learning all of these tools from the same mentor. And then I was using it on myself. And even though I was giving already sessions to the clients, they were not in a program with me. They were just sessions. And then I realized that just giving one-on-one sessions here and there, and then, me also just doing sessions here and there, it didn't created the same shift or results as now with my clients in this 30-day program, and I actually give them the direction, and it's really tuning into on a deeper level. So it took me years to create this kind of results with them, in 30 days, because it took me much longer while I was practicing on myself. And the other thing was that first, I realized that when I'm having these struggles, it's like it starts with a crying, like, oh, I'm crying because it's like so devastating or so scary or whatever. So then I do the healing, so I stop crying, or I'm not having this kind of triggers or reactions. But later, when it's smoothing out the emotional roller coaster, is sometimes it's you just frustrated, you just pissed off, or you just like, why is it happening to me, or whatever. And then your half of the brain is thinking about that, while the other half of your part is just want to move on. It's just want to have a happier life or joyful life, but you can't because the other half is like thinking about that situation which pissed you off. So then I do the healing and then it's gone. It's like clear the space, it's completely released, it's light, and then I just can move on happily. So sometimes it's just like when you feel that something is overriding you, in your thinking, and you just can't let it go, it's so frustrating. And then you got angry about somebody because they did something to you, and they really hurt you, and then they were really mean, they are bad person, they are bad people, but you still have to let it go. Otherwise, it's gonna poison your everyday life, And that's when you do a source memory healing and it's over. So it's great.
It sounds really, really magical. But a lot of people, Edith, they think that they can heal themselves or get over things just through their mindset or just through like willpower. Now, in your experience, because you talked about how you used to do it before in the incubator right now, and I'm sure you have a lot of experience with this, why do you feel it's not enough to just use your mind or just use your willpower to create like real lasting change?
Yeah, so with the mindfulness, I worked about mindfulness as well, and then I'm also helping with the clients with mindfulness because it is really important to also be mindful about our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. So how is it connected with our healings and with the karma as well? It's really important how it's connected with the karma. So what happens is you have thought patterns, right? If you think negatively, if you assume negative things, obviously then it's creating negative emotions. If you assume the worst, then you are in fear, then you feel maybe angry about somebody because you assume something bad about them, all of these things. And then you take a bad action because you are in anger or you are frustrated, so you make worse choices, and you're not doing a good choice in that energy. So when you are mindful, okay, I have to assume good things. I have to think about the positive, the vision, the good outcomes, right? I'm not assuming negative, and then I don't care about like what other people think, and so that kind of thing. Then you have positive emotions because of that, because you are encouraged, you are joyful, you are happy, you're moving forward, and you take positive actions. So karma is to make the choice, the best choice, to to take an action which is good for everybody, right? So it's what do I mean about good for everybody? It's not hurting others because of your ego. Sometimes we make choices when we look at our gain, right? So when you look at your gain, but you see that many people will suffer because of that gain, it can be very selfish, and it could be actually a karmic cycle, a karmic pattern when maybe a karma is coming from your ancestral karma, and they made a bad choice. Now it's presented to you, and then it's like, okay, what choice you're gonna take? And then if you do the same choice as they did, the karmic pattern is gonna continue, and it's gonna give you the same challenges over and over again until you make the better choice. So when you actually decide to make a different choice than your ancestors, then that karmic cycle stops. So that's when the mindfulness comes in, and then you also start seeing the consequences of your actions with mindfulness.
So I'm going to interrupt for a second, Edith. So you're saying mindfulness awareness is important, but at the level of making a different choice from your ancestors. But in order for us to make that different choice, we need to have the awareness, we need to have the understanding. And is that the part then where healing or, the kind of the inner work becomes really important, is to get to the point where we can actually use our mind to make different choices?
So mindfulness is also, we talked about now the thinking, right? And the emotions. So why we getting sick or why we having negative effect because of the traumatic experiences, the emotional roller coaster, because we allow ourselves to get into those emotions. If you are mindful, you don't allow yourself to get into those emotions, right? You are resilient, you're strong, and you say, I don't mind, I don't care that person pissed me off or they were rude to me. I don't care, it's their business. I'm not going to allow that to ruin my day or ruin my well-being. So if you allow that someone is getting onto you and would want to make you angry, or just, you would get angry 2 years ago, but now you are resilient and mindful and you decide, no, I'm not going to get angry whatever happens. That helps you with your health as well, because why we getting sick or why we are actually getting triggered is because we allow these kind of things to affect us. So if you are mindful, what you can do, you are staying, okay, I'm going to be positive no matter what happened to me. So I'm not allowing the vibration to drop and blocking my chakras and getting sick. So that's really good. It's a very good protection. But what's the difference between being mindful and doing the healing is that you are mindful is like holding a shield. Like you are going through your life, something comes your way, you put on the shield and you don't let to be hit, right? It's going through life, but always you need to protect yourself against this kind of situations. But if you do the healing, the difference is that when you realize that this situation is happening to you, but you start doing the healing and then you release and heal from the wounds, what happens? This situation is going to stop. They're not even going to happen. So you don't need to be always in the protecting standpoint or in the always being conscious. Being conscious is actually very draining energetically. We were created biologically that we only spend 5% of the time in our conscious mind. The rest is subconscious autopilot because we don't want to drain energy. Because just imagine when you go to write a test, right, an exam, or you need to be very present on a thing what you do for the first time in your life, then you are getting, you feel more tired, you feel more exhausted after that because you are in the conscious mind. So that's why we created biologically. So whenever you do something you've done already and your brain know how to do it, like washing your teeth or whatever, then or driving to your office where you go every day, then you can do it on a subconscious mind and then it's not exhausting your body. So when you are mindful, mindfulness is actually taking lots of energy because you need to be conscious all the time. But if you do the healing, it's going to release and heal the things from a deeper level. All these triggers going to stop. They're not going to happen because you rewrite your past in the Akashic records. So your future going to change and you don't need to be always in a defensive mindful state.
Wow. You essentially said something I think so powerful and important. I'm going to just like highlight this, which is the difference between healing and mindfulness is one takes a lot of energy and conscious, presence, and the other one just stops the issue at the root.
Yeah.
Wow. You integrate, Edith, neuroscience with ancient healing. Okay. How do these two kinds of disciplines come together when you're talking about trauma and emotional healing? So you talked a little bit about that inner work, right? So how do you integrate these two different disciplines to make sure that inner work stops the issue right from the beginning or right at the root, so it essentially goes away or it disappears or it's no longer a problem? Tell us about that.
It's not me who's integrating it. It was always integrated. It's just nowadays the people started to realize that they need to prove it through neuroscience that the ancient techniques works. So what are ancient techniques? Activating the pineal gland to get into delta brainwaves, because then you can access the unconscious mind to release the traumatic experiences. So it's already now neurological, in neuroscience, it's already proven, by Dr. Joe Dispenza, or Vision was also doing experience because of Jose Silva. So it was already there that they were working on delta brainwaves, they were working on pineal gland activation. And the ancient technique I use, and I learned this, is 60,000 years old. It's an Adi Yogi Shiva technique from Kashmir, from Kashmiri Shivaism. So Adi Yogi Shiva means the first yogi. So basically Shiva was like the first yogi, and he started to do these meditation practices with activating the pineal gland, getting the delta brainwaves when you produce more of the melatonin, serotonin, oxytocin, growth hormone, what you usually produce at deep sleep. So when people are having insomnia, not having good sleep, just practicing this Samadhi meditation once a day, it's already getting them into a better space. They become more focused, having better sleep, having better mood, and even become more vital. So that's the whole basis of it. And it's already in neuroscience, but it's 60,000 years old.
Yeah. Amazing. So what you're saying is that it isn't that we're integrating neuroscience and ancient healing. It was always integrated. We just took a little bit of time. Humanity took time to catch up and recognize that. I love
And
that.
explain it to people who's more skeptical.
Right.
Yeah.
Those who need the more science perspective. Okay.
Yes.
Let's take a moment to talk about karma now, because that is usually a very, very interesting subject for a lot of people. There's a lot of misunderstanding about what it is. How would you define karma in a way that explains your perspective, explains the work you do?
Yep. So karma means action. So taking action and also like knowing the consequences of your actions. In the law of karma, there are certain actions which is referred as karmic debts. Karmic debts can be lying. So when you lie, you're already creating karmic debts. Harsh words, anger. So when you express your anger or harsh words towards someone, that's karmic debts. Or killing, obviously, hurting others, that's karmic debts. Being in a bad companionship or doing fraud, scamming, stealing, that's also karmic debts. Sexual misconduct is karmic debts, which means you wanting someone who's already in a marriage, or in a relationship. Also, toxifying your body, which means overdoing things like addictions, like drugs or alcohol, or even over exhausting your body or over doing something with your body which is harming your body, basically. That's also karmic debts. And then let's say which one. Also, karmic debt is if you the being disrespectful to others, like for example, for parents, mentors, family members, especially elderly people, being disrespectful towards them. That's also karmic debt.
Edit. So karmic debt is something we're all doing all the time, sometimes knowingly, sometimes unknowingly, right? So what does this mean?
So yes, this culture is a bit, what can I say, how we live, and the humanity is like, yeah, we're creating karmic debts because we are not saints, right? So we should actually pay attention not to lie. We should actually pay attention, even gossip. Oh, I forgot to say, gossip is a karmic debt, and jealousy is a karmic debt. So, and the other most important thing is if you call upon a karmic debt is karmic debt. What does it mean? If you provoke someone to create karmic debt, is a karmic debt. So, for example, you poke the bear. Let's say you poke the bear and the bear becomes angry, that you're already creating a karmic debt because you were going there just to make sure that the other person is making a karmic debt. Okay. Or you actually tell someone to lie, or you actually tell someone to gossip about something, whatever. So basically, giving a karmic cause is already a karmic debt. So how to deal with this? Because we do this all the time in this current culture, and this current environment is full of karmic debts, right? It means you're going to get it back from another way, right? It's karma. It means you're doing it, then you got it from somewhere else. So if you lying a lot, people are going to lie to you. If you hurt other people or you do something, you're going to get it back somehow. You're going to pay for it. That's what I wanted to say. Maybe you're not going to pay for it the same. It's not always same. Not like, okay, if I take someone's wife, then someone else going to take my wife. It's not that clear. Might you gonna pay for it differently? So don't be so positive about it. Like if you lie, someone just gonna lie to you. It could be even worse. What I'm saying is just paying attention to knowing these karmic debts and paying attention to be a better person by not doing it. That's already a really great thing. And there is certain practices like, being kind, being compassionate, having mercy for people, all of these things. If you practice more of those, then obviously you create a better life for yourself. You're going to receive more blessings, because of the other side is you're going to receive blessings and positive things if you become a positive, better person. Yeah, I know not everybody's believing in karma. I know it's a choice who believes in it or not. I know I had people who said like, oh, they don't believe in right or wrong. They don't believe in karma. It's like, okay, it's your choice. It's like what I believe is a law of karma is exist as law of gravitation or law of attraction. If you don't believe in law of attraction manifestation, that's again your choice, but it exists.
It still exists. It's still running. It's still playing out. So what you're saying is, you don't get away with anything, right? Anything you do that is of low energy, low vibration, any cause you create, you will have to, like pay off the karma, or you will have to deal with the consequences, which I think is something also we as individuals need to understand, because I think a lot of people think, oh my God, why is this horrible thing happening to me? Or why do, these negative circumstances come to me over and over again? But then they refuse to see all the different things that they have done that has now invited.
But the hardest thing is that sometimes they are good as an angel in this lifetime and they don't understand, but their past life was terrible, or what they've done in their
ancestors, or the
ancestors, exactly,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess just having the understanding and awareness that things come from different places. They come from your genetic line, they come from your own baggage, they come from past lives, and it's not as simple as what is in front of you. There's a lot more going on.
And where is the best part, where this helps the most? When I do the source memory healing, there is at the end, there is a part when they need to forgive. They need to forgive to the people who betray them. Mm-hmm. And that's when they sometimes don't understand why that happened to them, how that person could do to them, And then I have to explain them that it's might because of your karma, might you had to go through that experience because of your own karma, or because of your ancestral karma, or because whatever is happening. So when they understand that, they can let it go and forgive easier, because I always say that you can't really point your finger to one person when something happens to you, because again, about this 5% conscious mind. So they most likely, when they hurt you, they were either in subconscious or they were controlled by the superconscious. So superconscious means the karmic and the ancestral thing, and subconscious means the cultural or the environmental effect or society effect, why they hurt you, basically. So I always say it's not one person. You can't really point your finger. So you should forgive and let it go, because that's for your own benefit.
Plus, for all you could have done something similar to them or much worse, in another time, or ancestrally, your ancestors could have done something to their ancestors or their genetic legs. So essentially, like, what I'm getting from this is that if your life isn't good, like if your life is not where you want it to be, if you don't feel good on a daily basis, if you are, repeating challenges and negative patterns and you're just not happy or you're struggling, then this is the invitation to look a little bit deeper and recognize that there are things in your unconscious mind. There are patterns in the genetic line, the ancestral baggage, or perhaps even past lives that might be playing a role, in your life. And if that is the case, and if you are willing to open up to those ideas, then now you have a way of actually healing it by doing that work. For example, you talked about some of the modalities that you use, whether it's open source healing, family constellation. There are many different healing techniques that allows us to address these kinds of influences that we are carrying.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. Okay. This has been a lot, Edith. This has been a heavy conversation, with so much richness, with so many things. I could have asked you so many questions. You talked a little bit about Akashic records, and I was like, oh, I want to ask about that. And there's so many different interesting topics just in our conversation today. So I want to thank you actually for bringing all of this to us and for sharing your experiences and your knowledge about all of these topics. Now, one of the things that I ask my guests to share is their Project Loving Myself mantra. Maybe one message one, something that you believe in that could help other people, or something you live by your life by. So what would you like to share with our listeners today?
I have a quote which I always carry with me. I always like it. It's how it goes is always expect the unexpected, and whenever you can, be the unexpected.
Ooh. Say it again for me, Edith. That was really deep. Say it again.
Always expect the unexpected, and whenever you can, be the unexpected.
Oh my God. That is a lot of inspiration right there. Thank you for today's conversation. I'm sure you have given so many people listening in a lot to think about, and perhaps also planted the seed that there's so much more to our experiences than we might even be aware of. And just having that awareness allows us to maybe explore these new ideas. So thank you so much. If people want to find you, they want to know a little bit more about your incubator, can you tell us how they can do so?
So I have an Instagram profile, which is Edith Beekis. I also have a website, edithbeekis.com. And I have a school community, skool.com, and the school community called Release with Ease, where people can come in, and I have a meditation library there. I have live events there, and they can just, come in and book also sessions with me there. And it's a community where people already went through, some of them went through my healings, or some of them is actually learning this too, because I also provide trainings becoming a facilitator. So if you think like, oh, you like this modality, or you want to use this modality with your clients, or just on your friends or families, or on yourself, you can also learn it on a training.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Edith, and thank you for the access. Edith reminds us that the weight you've been carrying isn't always who you are. Sometimes it's just what you've been holding on to for far too long. So maybe you're not too emotional, not too sensitive, not too much. Maybe you've just been carrying things you were never meant to carry alone. And for many of us, that weight didn't even start with us. It was learned, it may have been inherited or absorbed long before we had the awareness to question it. As Najwa Zebian, she's a Lebanese-Canadian activist, author, speaker, and educator, so beautifully says, "These mountains that you are carrying, you were only supposed to climb." I love that quote because it shows us that so much of what we're carrying are actually things that we were meant to overcome or learn from, which is exactly what Edith was talking about. The pain, the patterns, the emotions, they weren't meant to define us. They were meant to guide us, to show you to move forward, not to weigh you down. If this episode resonated, share it with someone who needs this reminder. Connect with Edith on Instagram at EdithBeKiss, and connect with me at Sanaya Gurnamal. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. On that note, thank you for joining me. You are loved.